I did want to clarify a few of the things to provide context, I think, for those who are watching and are interested in this. You mentioned, Mr. Lalliel, thank you for being here, excellent opening testimony, that there was some sort of AI breakthrough in the last number of weeks that's really changed the game, if I could put it in my own words. Can you just describe in very basic terms what this change was and why it's so relevant to the discussion we're having today?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So very simply, up until now, we had AI that could talk. Now we have AI that can act. So in practice, I mean, we've had various forms of AI agents for many years, but because the technology wasn't there to make them useful, in particular because the technology wasn't there yet to have them actively think through situations on the fly, troubleshoot, and interact and use the tools of a computer, previous agents were very limited. And so what happened in the last 3 months, basically since December, was a jump in the base model capability, a whole new infrastructure like OpenClaw for which helps basically give control of a computer to an AI agent. And so that's basically, we're now in a world where you're not just talking to a chatbot and getting an answer, you're telling an AI system, go do this in the real world for you.
Okay, and in your Plan for Canada paper from your association, you talk about artificial general intelligence, which you describe as the industry's term for first systems that can match or outcompete human beings in the real world. Is that what you're talking about, that leap's been made, or it's just one step closer to that?
We're getting so close to AGI that it's becoming a bit of semantics. Depending on your definition of AGI, some people have it as systems that can do every economic task that a human being can do. We're not quite there yet, probably another 6, 12, 18 months for that. There's another definition is systems that you can permanently lose control of. That we're probably not there yet, but possibly soon, depending on which system you're looking at. So it's a bit like when you're driving towards a city, when you start getting into the suburbs, you're not officially in the city yet, but you're kind of in the area. So you're very close to AGI, basically.
And I wanted to speak about, you had mentioned sort of the national security risk on this. So applying these new developments with AI and thinking that AGI is just sort of around the corner. We're in the suburbs, we're not quite downtown. But can you describe in a little bit more detail sort of a real world scenario on the security impacts that Canada should be preparing for? Because my understanding is this just makes sort of cyber hackers that much more competent, is that it just increases their capacity and their damage that they can do. Is that correct?
So that is correct, but there's also the added new risk of loss of control. And so this is where you have a system that can...
acting on their own. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, sorry,
They're acting on their own, is what you're saying?
Exactly. Well, so they're able to independently self-sustain, basically, able to, whether it be steal resources to be able to rent a server to be able to run themselves on, make copies themselves on different... Basically, it starts becoming more of an electronic disease living on your networks that you can't control versus purely a tool that you can help use for cyber attacks.
Okay, and then in your same paper I mentioned earlier, you mentioned that one of your recommendations for preparing the country for this is to establish a permanent task force on AGI chaired by the Prime Minister. And that's an interesting recommendation. And I think given your testimony, what you're saying is the security risk is so considerable now. And then I know your colleague, Mr. Duvenot, also has outlined for the committee in his opening remarks the potential labor impact. So given that significance, is that where that position is coming from, that this is so important?
I think there's a very legitimate case to make that this is a bigger deal than COVID. And in that sense, every file that government is going to work on, whether it be national defense or energy or culture or the environment, everything is going to be disrupted by AI. So there's a sense of this has to be coordinated from the top. And given the time it takes for government to put meaningful solutions in place, and given the speed at which AI is moving, you're basically in drop everything and work on AI mode.
Okay, and I'll go to Mr. Duvenot as well, if you can just on that same question, this recommendation to establish a permanent task force on AGI chaired by the Prime Minister, what would be your biggest argument of why we should do that?
Honestly, I haven't thought much about this question of this particular committee. I guess I'll say it's going to be necessary to have expertise on call, and things are just going to keep moving faster and faster. This is going to, like Mr. Lallier said, be one of the main things that people just want to talk about and are going to have to react to on a shorter timescale than usual going forward.
So your position is that that there'll be tremendous job losses, first in white collar, and then possibly with robotic automation, with AI combined, we could be losing blue collar jobs. And so we're talking about 10 years for white collar, and then perhaps 15 to 20 for blue collar. Is that what your position is?
It's really hard to predict, and it certainly will start biting in the next, let's say, it's already kind of starting to bite, but especially over the next 2 or 3 years. But the claims about it there not being any place to retreat to is maybe more in the like 5 to 10 year time frame. But I guess I'll say those kind of issues I do think are more suited to the usual legislative pace than the kind of risks that Mr. Lallier is talking about.
So what I'm hearing from the two of you gentlemen is that certainly there's a very considerable increase in national security threats because of the AI's capabilities and the rapid development of it. And then Mr. Jovino mentioned a lot about considerable labor risks as well that are coming. I mean, risks, I'm not sure if you'd qualify it as that, but certainly I think all of our constituents would be very concerned. So I'll call it a considerable risk. So I appreciate your feedback. I believe I'm out of time, but I appreciate the recommendation you've made through the association you represent, Mr. Lalliel, about a permanent task force chaired by the PM on this. I appreciate that.
All right. Thanks for watching, gang. Smash like, hit subscribe. Catch you in the next video. Cheers for now.